Welcome back to our panel for one final discussion on modernizing the state legislature. We've told you about the recent poll released by Common Cause New Mexico showing a majority of voters in New Mexico support changes like lengthening sessions, growing legislative staffs, and paying lawmakers, believe it or not. Now a new bill is proposing term limits for state senators and representatives. There are a few schools of thought on this, certainly. There are those who feel incumbents have a firm advantage in our system without term limits, and that adding them inherently creates a better representation. But there's also an argument that if and when a community finds a leader who represents their interests, term limits will eventually force them out earlier than they might want. Now, recognizing this, TJ, a lot of nuance here. Do you think term limits just frankly are a good idea for New Mexico as they are proposed? Or, and I should say, the proposal here is to increase senator terms from 4 to 6 years, representative terms from 2 to 4 years, but make them capped at 3 years concurrently.
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, how do I make this a non-political issue?
Okay.
So I'm thinking of this just from my heart.
Okay.
So number one, if you increase it to 6 years in 3 terms, that's 18 years. That's a generational thing anyway. I mean, if you're in for a generation of people. Right. And actually, even the 3-4 year terms is a long time. So I think the question comes down to whether or not you trust us, the people, to be able to keep coming up with new people who want to perform public service. Mm-hmm. And is it a benefit to the state to offer that to us to be able to have more people, make it easier for them to perform public service and not have to worry about somebody who's been entrenched in there forever. And I understand the argument being some of these people who are entrenched are very good at what they do. But does that mean that there are other people out there who are not? That's right. And I understand where the GOP at this point will think, well, yeah, we want to get rid of some of these people, right? And so, term limits, woohoo, let's do this, and let's get some new blood in there. So.
I speak specifically, Rebecca, of Senator Craig Brandt from Rio Rancho. He's the one pushing this. It's not a bill, it's more of a discussion point memorial to kind of get things going. He says it would allow for fresh ideas and more representation closer to the people. I'm not sure what he means about that. Do you know what he's talking about when he says representation closer to the people?
Well, I think as you see this swell of progressive candidates in particular are really running on the fact that they are of the people, they are, so the Republican Party really has to do something to counter that as well. I think, to the point of, 12 years, 18 years, we've got legislators that have been in there. I think Bobby Gonzalez has been in there for over 30 years. And he's amazing. He's awesome. But I think giving them a longer pipeline, term limits. If you're doing your job, that's the time to cultivate new candidates. Right. I think though it has to go hand in hand with salarying them. That is, and I've done a full 180 on this over the years. I used to think that the people that you want in government are the people who want it so bad they're willing to do it for free. Right. Well, now I realize if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. That's right. Like what we have is the people who are willing to do a job for free, and it's you're keeping a lot of people out. For instance, if I ever wanted to run for the legislature, I couldn't because I have to keep my family in the lifestyle they're accustomed to, and the per diem in the legislature does not, would not cover that. But there are plenty of great ideas, plenty of brilliant people out there who could absolutely help us turn this ship around, but they're not going to do it for free because they know their worth.
That's right. I think it's an excellent point. We'll come back and touch on that, how this could possibly work in a part-time legislature. Andy, interestingly, a quote from Senator Brandt, quote, "I'm trying to be careful about what I've seen in other states that have done term limits where if the term limit is too short, the bureaucrats end up running everything." I would agree with him. Continuing the quote, and not the elected officials. So I was trying to figure out how to strike that balance. I'm going back to TJ's thought. Is that balance having 18 years in a row? That's a long time to be in office, and the same issues about incumbency still hold, it would seem to me, for those 3 terms, right? I mean,
yeah, I think it's important to point out that Craig Brandt is starting his 10th year in the legislature right at this point, right? And that's not a knock on anybody, specifically him, but just that there's this.
His constituents want him there.
Right. There's an idea of fresh blood in there. On the other hand, it's it's starting from scratch,
Yeah.
right? When you try to get somebody new in there, how do you get leadership roles, right? I
Right.
mean, again, going to Senator Brandt, he's in a leadership role after so many years in there, and that's sort of how you naturally expect that to happen. So I think that's the other side of this argument is, how do you create this sort of institutional knowledge when it's reset every, I mean, I guess it would be more than just 6 years because you're talking about, 2 or 3 terms, right?
That's
But
right.
yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, it's going to be something that's going to come up again. I don't see it making it very far this year, especially without sort of professionalizing the legislature.
That's right. That's right. Speaking of which, to Rebecca's point, TJ Trout, if lengthening the session, does that make this more palatable? If we're at a 6-month scheme, a full-time scheme, or
The thing I hate
know.
about politics and national politics and state politics, especially with 2-year terms, is these people are always perpetually running for
fair
office,
enough.
and that's all they're concerned about. It just drives me nuts, especially on a national level in the House of Representatives. That's just crazy. To your point. The thing about that, I don't think you're going to have like a complete turnover of the legislature. Like everybody is not going to term out at the same time. Right. So I think what we're going to see is we're still going to have leaders in power. Not everybody just, you're all gone, so we got a bunch of newbies coming in, and so you all got to learn the ropes at the same time. I don't think that would probably happen. Rebecca, I agree with you though about paying people. I think it needs to be done. I think I think we need to have. There's too many problems in this state to have part-time people out there, and let's get some new blood in there. Meaning educators. You want to be a legislator? Let's have teachers be legislators and be able to afford to do that. Artists,
oh, God forbid. I
Yeah,
know.
come on.
And artists. Let's go back to where we started with that Common Cause poll. The public's way ahead of, it seems like, our legislature. The public wants this, guys. I mean, you're talking 70% support longer sessions. 46% of that was strongly support. The numbers who are at 64 want paid. It's not even close, Rebecca. The public wants this now. Are we just that far behind?
I think we are that far behind. I think, we have to treat the legislature with the professionalism that we expect from members of the legislature. The fact that they don't have staff members, that they're relying on lobbyists to vet bills and help them figure out what their position is, like that's wrong. We need to, they deserve it. I think we 100% need to extend the session, at least look at 60 days every year, because as long as there are bills trying to designate a state sent, there will be important bills that never make it down the road.
point.
Every memorial, every unfunded mandate, every smell, every song, every time a legislator sings happy birthday, like every single thing. If we're going to keep doing that, then they got to give themselves 60 days every year.
That's amazing, isn't it? Predictions on where you think this might land. A lot of committees to get through, certainly.
Term limits part?
Term limits, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's going to get all that far. I think that you see this a lot in different areas of the legislature, but they're essentially voting on their own job, right? And I think that would take a.
Does it make the job more or less attractive to know your term limited out, Teach? I mean, Craig Brandt says it'll make for better legislators. I mean, would that be attractive to a different cut of person?
I think 18 years is a long time.
to me,
It's like I said, it's a generational time. I think you could amass enough power, if that's what you're after, enough notoriety, and in 18 years, if you can't get something done worthwhile, then you got a real problem. And then again, you also have the opportunity to be voted out every 6 years.
That's a good point. It all comes down to that.
Instead of term limits, because then you've got lame ducks at the end, instead of term limits, make the job more appealing. Let the constituents decide when your term should be up.
Love that as a final word. Thanks again to our line panel as always this week. Be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics the line covered on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages, and catch any episode you may have missed on the PBS app, on your Roku or smart TV.